Update. Aita, if I tell my friend her BF is planning to propose. Original post. Everyone who told me to keep my mouth shut. Thank on Saturday, the day of the proposal, I got a call from her boyfriend. He was screaming at me, blaming me for not showing up, uninvited still, to the proposal with her parents because she was upset they weren't there. I was slack-jawed. I told him I knew this would happen, and he says verbatim, "You just admitted you knew this would happen, so if you knew the whole time and you actually cared about her, you would have invited." Was gobsmacked and hung up on him. Not even an hour later I get a call from her asking me to come to her parents. According to her, this is how the situation played out. He popped the queue, she said yes, and the people he invited popped out from hiding. She was bombarded by 4 of his guy friends, his mom, dad, older brother and his sister-in-law. His parents were holding a sign that read, "Welcome to the family, his last name here." And this is where things go downhill. I did not know this before, and I thought I knew everything, but my friend doesn't want to change her last name, and she's told him that repeatedly since they got together. She's an only child from a Ukrainian family, and with everything going on with Ukraine in the last year she's doubled. She saw the sign, she joked, "Last name. I think you mean last name." Everyone went silent until his mom said, "Well, the ring is already engraved, no changing it now." She takes the ring off and sees last name engraved on the. She asked if her parents were coming. He gave every excuse. He didn't have their number, there were too many people there. He wanted to keep it private and eventually said, "This was my proposal to you. And now my family is your family. We can just send your parents the pictures." Took the ring off and left. That's when I'm assuming I got that call from him. She went straight to her parents. She asked them about the engagement. They were clueless. She then asked if I knew anything. I asked if she was in the right place. She said she was, so I told her I would answer any question she had, rather than dumping everything on. Was upset but thanked me. She was furious when I told her about the call from him earlier and said, "Does he really think I'm that shallow?" She said it wasn't about having a perfect proposal or her parents there. It was about him making the whole thing about himself as always, and she was done feeling ignored and belittled. So this was her breaking point. She's staying with her parents currently and has been receiving texts from him. The worst one so far is him telling her she has to pay him back for the ring and for ruining his life. Right now, all I can do is be here for her, and whatever decision she makes, I will fully support because, as you've all helped me realize, this isn't about me, it's about her. Not my monkey, not my. She gave him the ring back when she took it off. I didn't include that because I was at the 3,000 character limit too. Update. I did not mention this plan when I originally posted just in case her ex found this thread. But I can report now that we got a heads up last night that he wasn't at their apartment, so we ran over and got most of her ass out, at least all the really important stuff. To those asking, no, she isn't going back to him, it's over.
Wow, somebody dodged a huge bullet.
Good. If you had intervened and showed up with her parents, she probably would have married him and spent a few years feeling ignored and belittled, all the while believing y'all had his back, not hers.
They dated for 5 years and he claims he doesn't have her parents' number? Yeah, he's a self-centered and she's better off without him. Too bad she wasted so much time.
Thank you so much for the update. I've been looking for it all week. I'm so proud of your friend. It must have been so hard to take the ring off and walk away in front of all of his people. She has saved herself such hardship and trauma by nipping it in the bud. I can't believe that he thinks that she should pay for it after he had it engraved with something he knows she didn't want. It seems that he and his family were trying to force her to take their name. I guess he'll be going shopping for a new bride now that he has a ring. Ha ha ha. I wish you and your friend much happiness. You're both strong.
His mum said, "Well, the ring is already engraved, no changing it now. This was my proposal to you and now my family is your family. We can just send your parents the pictures." Dodge too massive.
Making your proposal to your girlfriend all about you and what you completely ignoring what she wanted, that was a bold move and not blew up in his face spectacularly. I sincerely hope his buddies never let him live this down.
NTA, can you feel yourself growing? 'Cause you are. Be proud of yourself here.
I don't know what happened before, but I really hope this poor girl sees these glaring red flags and ends things with him.
Color me shocked that this played out precisely as you'd predicted it would. I'm glad you went with the advice not to say anything and he learned the hard way. What a putz. And now he's a single putz.
An engagement ring engraved Mrs. 4X? Yikes. That's not an expression of love but of ownership. Glad OP's friend had the good sense to bail.
OP's original for anyone interested what this is about.
I believe technically if he still has the engagement ring she doesn't have to pay squat because he can return it. Assuming he still has the receipt. So yeah, that dude is definitely an aw.
She should give the ring for the rest of it. She should count herself lucky that she dodged this bullet. Better to learn all this now than after marriage.
And Op helped her dodge it, even though not telling her didn't feel like it was helping at all. Sometimes tolerating your own discomfort in order to let people tell on themselves is the best way to go. Now Op can keep being the caring friend they already were.
I'm hoping that engraving the ring with Mrs. his last name when he clearly knew she wasn't changing her name would have still been enough.
And too many people, yet he invited 4 of his friends.
The excuse that confirms the crime. Lol, wait, you don't understand, I've put even less effort into including your family than it seemed at first. It might seem like I didn't contact them about this event, but the reality is I've never contacted them about.
Ha, right? Why should she pay for the ring? It has his name on it. He is lucky she didn't throw it at his face.
This guy, his friends, and his family are all screaming red flags. He's seriously treating her like chattel and that her family doesn't even register as a thought.
Somehow I suspect he's buddies with the kind of men who'll blame it all on her and just say she's an uptight B***H and stand by their boy.
Believe it or not, this whole situation has made me reevaluate a lot about myself. I was told in many comments on my last post that I was coming off codependent and nosy. I took a hard look at myself and realized this wasn't the first time I was planning to overstep in a friendship. I take my friendships very seriously, but my loyalty can sometimes come off toxic and get me into trouble. I see now that the most important thing in a friendship is recognizing the autonomy of the other person and respecting that they can make their own decisions, whether they are good or bad, because it's their life, not mine. I've realized now that the times in my life where I overstepped, I was being a bad friend because it comes off as if I don't have faith in my friends' ability to judge things for themselves. You can't always protect or prevent things from happening to the people you love. You can only support them to the extent they want to be supported.
Basically, Op told him what would happen and he did it anyway.
ellipsis. She returned the ring to him, left, and moved back to her parents. How much more can she do? Lol.
Here is the original post.
One thing I've realized here too is that it actually didn't go as I predicted. I expected her to be upset that her family wasn't there, but she's expressed to me that was not the issue. The issue was that the proposal was just another example of his selfishness, and in that moment she said she saw what her life would look like with him, and despite being with him for 5 years, it took the possibility of being legally bound to him for her to see things clearly. Oh yeah, she doesn't have it. She gave it back when she took it off.
Just remember the engraving part, so yeah, he probably won't be able to return it, but he could definitely sell it for the exact price he paid for it.
The only culture he's a part of is frat life. She gave me permission to post and even looked it over to give me the go-ahead. She's been reading the comments too and she's feeling, her words, like a boss. She did. That's what was meant by, she took the ring off. Dude. This was my initial way of thinking, which is why I wanted to tell her in the beginning, but after fighting for my life in the comments of the original post and taking time to really think rationally about it, there was really no positive outcome in the situation. The choices I had were either interfere or don't, and when you weigh those options, not interfering was always the right decision. He put me in that position, but if I stepped in I would have taken all the heat away from him. At the end of the day, I trusted that my best friend would understand, and she think rather than focusing on, well, I would want this, or, I would be so upset if my friend didn't tell me. We should just focus on what the actual outcome was, and in this case, luckily enough, it ended as best it could have. What's important to her may not be important to you. It's okay to not understand since you aren't in her shoes. But respect is about listening to the things other people value and removing your opinions from the conversation because we aren't talking about you, we're talking about her.
I remember a part in Memoirs of a Geisha where Mamaea observes a sumo match and makes note that the winning wrestler was the victor because he let his opponent charge at him, and instead of trying to block him, the winner used the aggressor's momentum to toss him from the ring. Then she used the same theory to defeat her rival Hatsumomo, who ended up exposing herself as a total whack job. Op absolutely made the right choices here, and thankfully her friend is young enough to start fresh with this valuable lesson under her belt.
The engraving would have driven me. It makes it all about him. An engagement ring is something you wear forever. Why would you put something on it you know your partner doesn't want? What a raging narcissist.
Honestly, who puts his last name on a ring? I guess some people do, but on an engagement ring? I didn't even engrave my wife's wedding ring. That is pretty presumptuous of him and leads to the thought he's full-on narcissistic. He is a narcissist that fully believed she would just be submissive and bow to his wishes. I bet he figured if he got the name on the ring she couldn't object.
What kind of weird proposal is that anyways? Friends popping out behind furniture? Parents with balloons and sign? What sort of circus is this?
Maybe I have had my head in the sand, but I've never heard of engraving before marriage. It's so disrespectful and possessive. Maybe he should give it to his mum, lol.
It's the weirdest thing about codependency, that we get so focused on how we end up like a doormat and hurt, that we miss the flip side. If I am not protecting myself, then I am not containing myself either. If I have been letting others crash my boundaries, guess what? Yup, I have been crashing theirs. That realization opens you up to a major personal growth spurt. And it has. I hope you will be proud of that. If you need help feeling okay letting others suffer their pains, read Man's Search for Meaning, by Viktor Frankl. From that book I learned that our suffering is part of our process, and that it is arrogant of me to think I know better than the universe that your suffering must be prevented or stopped. I know that my own suffering, mistakes, have changed my own course and who I am. For that, I am grateful. They will feel similarly, but it is up to them, not me.
I didn't read the first post originally but did now. I don't think you were codependent or nosy. But I also know from just years of life experience that unfortunately sometimes we have to let our loved ones learn the hard way, and there is only so much we can do. I think you handled it the best way you could have and learned some things about yourself in the process. It was a tough spot to be in, and I would find it hard not to overstep also. Bottom line, you are a good friend and she's lucky to have you in her corner.
I think you did everything right. You had a idea about how to prevent your friend from imminent heartbreak, but weren't sure if it would come off the right way, so you asked a bunch of strangers. I always tell my kids sometimes you need advice from someone who has nothing to gain or lose from the situation. Despite some comments suggesting you're a terrible friend, you took their words, did some self-reflection and decided to let things happen naturally. Things went how you said they would, but you had no part in it, and your friend called you immediately, and you're being there for her, supporting her however you can. You realize that you can't interfere in some things. Sometimes you just have to let things happen as they will and help pick up the pieces after. You can't always prevent bad things from happening, and sometimes people have to figure things out for themselves. But in a situation that technically had nothing to do with you, you learned something about yourself and you're growing from that, and that's honestly the best you can hope for sometimes.